evening, everybody, and welcome to Mad Realm's Vote to Kick. I'm your host, Jim, also known as Malthanis, and tonight we are discussing a staple of the MMORPG raiding endgame content for large groups of people, not quite five-man content where everything is great. With me is fellow co-founder of the Talking Script podcast, Guild Wars Monk, Aaron. How you doing tonight?
Hey, what's going on, guys? As everybody knows, I'm a well-known member of the MMO rating community in general, so my opinion on this show is highly relevant.
So very.
And you should vote for my side.
So before we get into the discussion, we have up over here is the results of our last show where me and Anthony Rigucci, also known as Fenris, discussed retconning in video games, where it would seem that the keeps have it. It was only 6 people, so I guess it's mostly people are ambivalent to the idea. So I suppose it's let the writers be writers for the most part, but take what you will from it. So let's go ahead and pop open the new form and then get these. Where the heck did my... Oh, nope, that's the wrong window. Quality production here, folks. No data.
I mean, yeah, you pull production things off on these shows that I can't. So I can't talk, right?
You say this like I'm some kind of crazy man. Okay, so
it's
chat.
wizardry to me.
There is the link for the form to cast your vote to keep or kick rating. And I'm just gonna go ahead and use that myself since I am going to be arguing keep today. So I'll go ahead and throw my vote on that side.
I'm going to be kicking raids, guys. I'm kicking them out. Vote to raid right now.
It broke again. Deo fixed it, but it broke.
Wait, is it showing opposites again?
Yes, it is.
Do you know how to fix that? That's the question.
I would need to customize.
Oh, dude, that sweet Google Docs stream, though.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's juicy. Yeah, chat's saying it looks fine. It's the red should be for kick, but it's showing for keep.
Yeah,
that's the problem. They're reversed. That's
like
the issue.
We just got another keep technically for it, and it's just I don't know what the heck keeps happening. Like it's not like I'm even changing the.
People voting before the discussion even happens?
Well, I mean, people have their opinions, man. But as per usual, we'll go ahead and figure this out at some point. Aaron, I will leave it to you as the guest to argue kick for rating.
All right, everybody. So as we all know, rating is one of the most highly publicized aspects of MMORPGs, right? Like it's what you always hear about. You know, when you hear the WoW stories, everyone's always like, dude, me and my raid group back in the day. When you hear about X, Y, and Z game launching, everyone's like, does it have raids? And how hard are they? Right? My main beef with raiding that I've come across over the years, right? Because I've been there. You know, I've been in that arena from time to time. My personal raid experience comes from the game Guild Wars, not Guild Wars 2, but Guild Wars, the first one. That game didn't have content that was called raids per se, but it had high-end group content at the end of the game that was essentially raiding, right? And the biggest issue that I would come across entering into this content was the sheer organization factor. And I know for a lot of people that's a entry in the plus column. It's a huge negative for me. It's enormously difficult content to organize. You have to get an inordinate amount of people together at the same time on a semi-regular basis. Like generally it's like a weekly basis. And if you manage to pull that feed off, you then have to get everybody doing that same thing consistently for the next 2 hours or however long you're raiding, right? And you've always got, I got to go to the bathroom. Oh, guys, I don't have my food. I got to go buy some on the trading post. Oh, guys, I have to go make a grilled cheese for my little brother. Like the amount of roadblocks you have to overcome to finally get a raid to go off without a hitch just makes me wish it was never put in a game ever again. And that's where I'm at with raids currently.
So your biggest sticking point is the sheer level of organization factor.
Yes, I feel like I feel like in video game development, that's something that raiders expect, is for it to be high organization, and that's just, for a lot of players, I feel like that's a huge turnoff, and that actually results in a lot less people playing it than is maybe worth it, to put the resources in. So
That's and you mentioned resources, so I'm assuming that, do you think that could be like better spent elsewhere for more, I don't know, accessible content, I guess would be the phrase there.
and that's kind of what I'm getting at, is I would like to see those resources go towards fleshing out the game world more. I'm a big fan of world building and open world gameplay in video games, in MMOs specifically. And that's where rating is a thing. So I like MMOs are the basis of what we're talking about here, right? So I'm a huge fan of open world content in MMOs. The more open world content, the better. And I just feel like that's resources that can be put towards that. It can be put towards story mode content for people who enjoy that sort of stuff. It can be put towards, PvP game modes, larger group PvP game modes, stuff like that. So I would love to see those areas fleshed out more in MMOs, and less stress placed on the rating aspect, which I think is pressured by a vocal minority of players.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
Um,
that's just about where I'm at with it after several years MMO experience.
don't like raids because it requires you to concentrate for way too long, and I'm simply too lazy to get the right gear to do raids. Fair enough, AFK Queen.
I mean, laziness is a fact. It wasn't one I was going to bring into my personal argument, but there are people out there who just don't want to do it, right?
That's fair. I get that. Now, and playing a little devil's advocate to add some anecdotal stuff. You mentioned time. My wife used to have a raid night starting at 8, so an hour into when I would do Zero to Hero. Um, what ended up happening is a lot of the people just had a bunch of other raid teams, and Wednesday night had to be the night that they let go of. But for her, she works from home, and basically, if you're not, and this is, you can attest to this, Aaron, if you work from home, if you are not actively doing something else, but you're at home, the immediate thought is, I could be working right now.
Oh yeah, no, that's every hour of it because I work from home as well, and yeah, I've been there.
So it's
Definitely.
it's one of those things where like the other people couldn't continue the raid, and it's hard. Like she couldn't say, "Well, I'll just raid with my other group," like the rest of them could. Um, and then it's just one of those other things where it's like she can really only devote one night to raiding. When raiding came out, we were with Maven and we were raiding 3-4 nights a week, and I have to agree that it is exhausting after a while, and it's the same thing over and over again. It
There's
was
that one guy in the group that just doesn't get it, and he's not going to. Nobody
right.
wants to say anything, but
Eventually it clicks because our circle of friends here, I've mentioned before on Talking Script on this show, that our circle of friends who live near us, we used to raid in World of Warcraft, and we spent a lot of time doing it. We also spent a lot of time just goofing around. Like, I think there was a
mhm.
point in time in Firelands during World of Warcraft Cataclysm where we lost a healer, or no, we lost a tank, and the final boss had like a tank swap mechanic, and it was just like, hey healers, see how long you can keep me alive,
Yeah,
and it just
yeah.
just kept going, and we all had a good laugh at that. But I can't rebut the time sink. I
Mhm.
really had that. That is definitely one of the downsides to rating. You have an excellent point there. Um, and that is always the question of, could these devs be doing other things? My rebuttal to there, again, comes from my experience as a developer. For the keep side of things, raids are a test bed. Generally speaking, they are designed for people that are supposed to be organized and on point, such basically the setup. Um, Therefore, they can design harder mechanics and almost beta them. Most of the ground targeting reticules that you see for mobs in Guild Wars 2 now showed up in raids in the first place. I know you play PvP a lot. The Scourge ground indicator for their Sandshades, that was a raid indicator.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of mechanics that can be tested because one of the variables, the player skill, the floor is raised a bit. I'm not going to say it's definitely raised because you have millions of people playing the game and skill is all over the place. And Zlint, I see you in chat, so I will raise you one link to the forum. I really need a bot to just keep cycling that thing in. Really need a bot.
Get that Nightbot in here.
Yeah. So the resources for developers, I don't think are ever actually wasted because those things can translate to other areas of the game. And then let's see here. From Arctic Alcoholic. I'm glad rating's there for people who like it, and I don't need to do it. But that's the worst opinion you... I don't know. It's... To be honest, I'm kind of there with you. I see the benefit of it because it gives people an option if you want larger group content that's organized. But it's also not necessary for the rest of the game unless you want a particular shiny. Honestly, I think Guild Wars 2 has done the best design by decoupling rating from gear progression. Like, Ascended gear that you can get Goram everywhere in Guild Wars 2 is the top tier gear in stats. You don't need to keep farming raids for it. The most you get is skins and then also legendary armor and I think a trinket now with the new stuff.
Well, I mean, in regards to Guild Wars 2 specifically, raiding actually is the best way to get ascended armor. It's you know, you can just get it super easy there. But I get what you're saying in that they've decoupled raid progression from the game, or gear progression from the game in general. So, you know, once you have it, you have it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can swap the stats with Guild Wars. It's not like World of Warcraft where to continue the gear progression, you must raid. Like that's not part of this. In order to raiding is not required for the end game progression. It's the optional end game progression. I honestly think that I'm ambivalent, mostly because my raiding experience is now Guild Wars 2 primarily, and that decoupling kind of takes away a lot of the like, I really don't want to do this thing, but the game wants me to do this thing from it. Primarily, my keep for raiding comes from that development standpoint, from the test bed of mechanics that I think is honestly good for the game. Having some kind of floor for entry, like a threshold, means that you get a certain number of people who are willing to put the time in, and then you get a lot of good data out of that.
Yeah, and I was thinking that too. I mean, I know we're having a debate here, but to aid your point, like when Snowcrows, for example, does their benchmarks, right? That's work you just did for ArenaNet. Thank you. You know, like the devs are like, and we'll just take those. Thank you very much, and let's see what we can crunch with that. You know, yeah, it's totally work that gets that helps the devs, and it really helps with the balanced teams. When they, you know, X, Y, and Z MMO is always going to have balanced teams working on skill balance, some more than others, right? But
you know, that Thieves doing 1.2 million, that was intended, right? Right?
Yeah, no, you know, I thought that was a fun day. But yeah, I can't deny that it helps a lot with figuring out game balance. And it is something that a lot of people want. I'm not going to deny that it's something that a lot of people want. But one thing that I want to go back to that I said before is that I think it's a vocal minority. I think it's a small section of the player base that goes for that content. And I just don't know if it's a large enough segment of that player base to get the attention rating gets in most games, I guess. Because rating gets a lot of attention in a lot of games. It's one of the most high priority items in a lot of dev teams. And I don't know if it's proportionate. You know, I can't say for sure, but I'm just throwing out there, maybe it's not proportionate. I don't know.
Well, pour one out for Wildstar because I think Wildstar fell into the old trap of attunements.
Wildstar.
Yeah, hashtag poor Wildstar. I actually just got the email that they are officially closing the servers on the 28th of November.
Yep, November.
But I think that raiding receives the hype it gets because it was the be-all, end-all for the beginning of MMOs.
Mm-hmm.
Like EverQuest, World of Warcraft, those two focused very much on endgame content. I mean, look at World of Warcraft. That used to be, raiding was 40 people. Just,
yeah.
Like they had to add, like 20-man raids were added in after the start of the game. It started with 40.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we're talking, like, 10-man raids for Guild Wars 2, and it's just, like, that's a quarter of what you had to do before.
Yeah, it's a baby raid.
Yeah. But
yeah, well, and with the 40-man rating, it's like, at that point, just make it an open world thing, you know? Like, like come on, 40 people in an instance? I don't know about that.
Well, you know...
Have fun balancing for that. That sounds like fun.
I honestly think that's probably why, like, again, you know, talking about development, that's probably why things got shrunk a bit, because I just cannot comprehend balancing for having 40 people in an instance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just nuts. But
and like Zlint's saying in chat, having 40 people in one vent server.
It's like the more people you add, the like harder control you have to have over people, and you can't just like, it's more a job than it is like enjoying a game.
Being a raid leader is a management position.
Now, Zlint said earlier, I'm gonna have to watch the VOD because I feel like I missed a lot of the debate. The only problem is, like, I don't feel like someone who is viscerally for or against raiding. From things I've seen, I don't know if it's necessarily worthwhile to debate with someone who has already made up their mind. Mm-hmm. Like, I hate to say you'll probably see more middling ground arguments from this show, but I think that's like being able to accede the other point. Like Aaron's saying, like the giant con, the reason why people don't like raids is the time sink. And that's it. Like that is literally like the time sink and the discipline, and suddenly the game that you were playing for fun becomes a job.
Well, and if we want to dig more into my pet peeves on raiding, the sheer idea of banging my head against something on a weekly basis and getting almost nowhere. I can't do that. Like that's unfathomable to me. And some people love that. Some people love, like, oh, all we did today was try to kill Veil Guardian. Like, some people are super into that. And to me, that sounds like purgatory. Like, it's amazing how, to what degree people differ on their idea of engaging gameplay and fun. Right? And to me, raiding is the antithesis of fun. And that's ultimately why I gotta stick with Kick on it, man. I gotta stick with Kick.
Yeah, and what Quo just said in chat is specifically about how there is someone who is a linchpin for a team, gets frustrated with the people who are learning. That was the problem with attunements. Now, attunements was an old raiding concept in MMORPGs where you had to do X thing first before you could even get into a raid instance. Mm-hmm. And with a lot of older raids, that was, you had to do the raid before it, and the raid before that, and the raid before that, and like you get all the way back to the first raid, there was a lengthy quest chain that you had to go through in order to get.
And then nobody's doing it.
Right, because everyone's already done it. If you get there late to the party, you're kind of stuck.
And that's actually another point I had, and I have an anecdote for this, is one of my stream viewers is constantly like talking to me in my chat about how, like, oh dude, all I want to do is raid, but it is impossible to find a group right now. Like, I just can't. Like, you just join pug after pug, join guild group after guild group. The skill cap was too disproportionate. they didn't meet often enough, they weren't serious enough about progression, just X, Y, and Z reasons why it was just impossible to get into a raid group at like long after a raid patch. The time to get there's a finite window in which you can get into raiding, and that is when a new raid drops, right? You have to start raiding then. You can't come in 2 months later. Everyone's already got their static. You're not going to find a static 2 months after a raid release. Like, so you just have to be like, oh, I guess I'll wait for the next one. Like, I feel like it's so inherently gated by the very concept that it ostracizes a lot of players, and it makes a lot of people not want to come back to the game. I don't know.
Burnout's a thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and like he finally found one, but it was like a lot of people aren't going to be that tenacious about their search, right? And they're going to be like, "Oh, I'll just go play another game."
Because again, it comes back to the I'm playing a game for fun, not as a second job. So
yeah, and
you don't even get to play the raid; you get to play the looking for raid.
Yeah, and there are just so many hurdles that I think it comes across as a negative experience for a lot of people rather than a positive. And a lot of people will force themselves through it because there are rewards tied to it, right? A lot of people will force themselves through it and come through hating the game that they started loving, right? Yep. That's hyperbolic. It sounded very good.
It is the extreme ending of it, but I don't think it's invalid to say that it can make you hate the game that you used to love.
Mm-hmm.
I know a friend who just won't play World of Warcraft anymore because of the constant, oh, you're at max raid gear. By the way, new expansion, your greens from quests are now better than your raid gear.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's kind of like, I can't say anything as a player. Like, I am ambivalent to raids as a player. It's pretty much just as a developer that I think raids are good for the game.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, I can give you that point, and that they're good for the game, and that they're content for the people that want it, right? Yeah. It's there for those people who want to play it, and if you like the game if you like a game and you don't like the raids, you just go play the other stuff you like in the game, right? Like, I'm tanking my own argument right now, but it's the simple truth. It's the simple truth, and that's exactly what I do. I don't like raiding, right? So I don't do it. I go do everything else, and I don't do that, and I'm fine at the end of the day.
So that is probably about the end of this. We've gone about 25 minutes on a middling debate. I mean, you're right, Zlint. It's a debate because we don't really have horses in this race because neither of us raid. But
I mean, you've done more raiding, I think, out of the two of us. At least you've raided more recently.
I was also a raid lead. Like, I was the guild leader in our Warcraft guild as well, and like,
yeah, you did WoW raiding, which is like big boy raiding.
Never the big stuff. Well, I was a main tank too, so it's kind of like you already get thrust into a leadership position on that stuff. But
yeah.
Now, for those of you on YouTube, I want to hear your comments. I want to hear what you think of how things are going with raiding. So cast your vote. The poll will be in the description, and sound off on your specifics in the comments below. I have been your host, Malthanis. You can find me on Twitter at MalthanisMMO. You can also find me here live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for Vote to Kick, where we discuss things to keep or kick in the gaming industry. You can also find us live after the show for some ranked Guild Wars 2 PvP shenanigans for 0 to Hero. Aaron, I believe, is joining me for that today.
We're going to be bad engineers.
Well, I might just YOLO it and go Reaper just because.
Man,
but
fancy.
Yeah, I know, right? You can also find this channel live every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for the Talking Script Weekly Guild Wars 2 news podcast with our fellow hosts Age, Arlie, and Deo. And I hope to see you all there. Hope to see you all here next Wednesday, and I hope you all have a fantastic evening. Good night, everybody.
See you guys.